Sair da escola já com uma formação profissional no currículo? Parece bom demais pra ser verdade, né? Pois é. No ensino técnico do Senac, isso é possível. É ensino médio junto com formação técnica, que acontece durante os 3 anos. Lá, eles usam metodologia para projetos, desenvolvendo competências como resolução de problemas, pensamento crítico e colaboração, além de valores éticos e sustentáveis. Quer saber? Senac. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino médio e saiba mais.
Hi there, I am Sarah Jane Case, and I'm the host of your new favorite show, Enneagram and Coffee. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the beautiful and hard parts of being human. We discuss the Enneagram, a personality map that is taking over the world, for increased self-compassion, personal growth, and healthier relationships. Listen to Enneagram and Coffee on the iHeart app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Despite their differences, Tharion and Bryce team up to evade Mordoc. Hunt is unable to come to Bryce's aid, as he is stuck at the Comitium, where he helps diffuse Isaiah and Baxian's interactions and finds time to bond with Baxian. During Hunt's week of confinement at the barracks, Bryce trains with Cormac and Ruhn, and Dec's program finally finds evidence of Danika in the library of Griffin Antiquities. The video footage shows Danika's secret search for the truth of her lineage, leading Bryce to approach the Prime to find out what he knows. When news about Ophion's successful operation to steal a mechsuit prototype means the rebels are coming to Lunathion's shores, Bryce convinces Celestina to release Hunt under the guise of visiting her family. The team travel to Ydra and meet Pippa Spetsos and the truth of what it means to be a Vanir working with the Ophion rebel group.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are enjoying the podcast, check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we're exploring Sarah J. Maas's second installment in the Crescent City series.
This is Jac.
And I'm Amy.
This week, we're discussing chapters 40 through 43 in A House of Sky and Breath.
This week, we ask ourselves, how much power do titles really give to these characters?
And that is with italicized and bold.
Really?
Themes we see this week include crossroads and partnerships. That really was not coordinated at all. I mean, I'm just impressed with us.
I was looking at the audio and I was like, oh yeah, we really timed it real well.
Yeah. I just want people to know that was not rehearsed. Chapter 40 starts, and we ended last episode. Just a reminder that Bryce and Tharion were facing off. They're going head to head. Mordoc arrives, and Bryce remembers that is Danika's dad. Quote, "Nothing of Danika showed in Mordoc's cagey face, only there. The way the wolf captain pushed off the wall and approached. She'd see Danika make that movement with the same power and grace." And I think in a way, Bryce has been really struggling a lot with Danika keeping secrets and stuff. And I think that seeing this was almost comforting because Bryce, too, has moments that she's like her dad. It's connecting.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I didn't even make that connection, but it's an excellent point. Tharion and Bryce ultimately end up uniting again in this moment, even though we had started to see a rift. Tharion, remember, thinks that he's on the same level as Bryce. But Bryce told him, "You're an asshole. I want nothing to do with you. We're nothing alike." But now Mordoc is here, and the two revert to a united front immediately. Tharion, quote, "Again, that irreverent, charming mare," while Bryce, quote, "Bryce admired her nails and then blew him, Mordoc, a kiss." Both are irreverent and charming. That is, for both of them, their armor. And I think in this moment, Bryce is kind of reaffirming Tharion's beliefs about their similarities.
Yeah, I agree. And also, like, Bryce in this episode in particular, she's going to be looking at her nails a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's back to weaponizing the feminine, which we talked a lot in CC1. And also just like looking at your nails is such a dismissive act.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it enough.
I really could afford to do it more.
Yeah, I think we can. Not on each other. Oh, wow, that was not... All right, well, that just started something. Why do bad men always have an underlying level of sexual violence against women? Quote, I was warned you had a mouth on you. Bryce blew him a kiss. Happy to not disappoint my fans. So the term got a mouth, like, it's just going to have underlining sexual tones. Like, again, that's not something that you would tell a man. Heard you got a mouth on you. You know what I mean? Because, you know, men are assuming sexual violence with that mouth, like, realistically. And this moment reminds me a lot of when Bryce met Pollux, because he'd said something very similar.
It's the most overt way to identify that a male is a bad male. Is the weaponization of sex, right? The second you come across a man or a male who doesn't do that, you immediately think they're good.
Yeah.
Until you find out something else about them, right?
This doesn't give me hope, Amy.
I'm sorry.
You literally sent me a text message with a link to something. It was like, this makes me sad for you that you're straight.
I
that was the first thing I saw in the morning. It's okay. You weren't wrong.
I mean, it was a really bad.
It was.
Really bad thing. Revealing for men.
Yeah.
Bryce continues to justify her ability to continue to work with Tharion, even though she doesn't feel like he's a good Vanir, he's not a good person, and that they're not the same in the slightest. Quote, she might be pissed as fuck at Tharion, but she'd take the mayor any day over Mordoc. They'd always been allies against people like him. And of course, me, the way I read this, okay, so you can be allies when you're up against pure evil.
Yeah.
But any other, that's a very low bar to be allies on. It does make me curious about the future for Tharion and Bryce, because even though we're done with Bryce's story, I wonder if in Tharion's journey that we get after Flame and Shadow, if there's going to be a time where she's like, you're an asshole, you keep digging yourself a grave. I'm not helping.
I think there's something to that because, you know, there's always like once one of the characters has their 3-book arc, there's always like a, you know, well, I'm done developing now. Yeah. You know, it's just like they're still growing, but like not in the way that takes center stage. It makes sense because right now I feel like Bryce and Tharion kind of have this like parasitical relationship with one another because Bryce is about to have empathy for Tharion. But before we get into the whole parasitic relationship with that, quote, before Mordoc could reply, Tharion said with that winning smile, unless you have some sort of imperial directive to interrogate us, we're done here. It's very Bryce. Tharion, remember we talked before about Bryce imitating and mirroring Tharion last episode, and this is Tharion doing the same thing here. And they're very similar. And I think that this is about to set her up for forgiving him.
Yeah, I completely see it. I think what really does it for Bryce is seeing Tharion as a male who is aggressive, but then realizing he also lost a sister. And that's one of the reasons for his aggression. And it makes her empathize. And I just was very disappointed. I'm like, I don't know that he deserves your empathy. Yes, I know that him losing his sister sucks. However, that doesn't excuse his current behavior. She being Bryce, will continue to rationalize Tharion and her interactions with Tharion and willingness to work with him. She tells Tharion he can send her an otter and then they'll be even. Quote, she might not approve or agree with Tharion's methods, might not entirely trust him, but they had far more dangerous enemies at their backs. Sticking together was the only choice. Is it though? Like, what does he really do to help that others couldn't do if he weren't there? I just don't feel like Tharion's necessary to this story.
I hate what I'm about to do.
You're about to justify his existence.
I know. No one's happy here.
No.
Least of all me. So Tharion is the only one who has some kind of like royal backing. You have the River Queen who's supporting him. And he's the only one who's there on official business. Yeah. And in some way that's kind of an out. If you think about it, like, not that they're going to be like, we're doing royal business for them too, but there's a certain amount of, he's the only one who's doing it for I don't want to call it honorable reasons, but maybe legal reasons.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. He's the only one that's not a vigilante at the end of the day, where they all are.
Yeah. I know. And then also, he has proven to be useful on the waterfront. You know, like he sliced up those things. Sobex, thank you. He was sliced up those Sobex and stuff. But I want to go into this, like, Bryce forgiving him too quickly. And I think there's a reason for that. I was calling their relationship to be a little parasitic. And that's because I think that right now, if Bryce can forgive Tharion, then she can forgive herself, because they're a mirror, right? And they're similar, and they're both using charm and sex to their advantage. And it's almost like SJM has to show that it's not really sex involved, because there's a childlike nature, an element to it. Quote, he tugged on her hair. I thought we weren't working together anymore. You're on probation. You can thank your abs for that. He took her face in his hand, squeezing her cheeks as he pressed a chaste kiss on her brow. I'll send you some photos later. Don't show Athalar. Again, it's sexual in surface level nature, but at its core, it's actually like a very sweet moment.
Yeah.
And again, if Bryce can forgive herself through Tharion, then Tharion can find redemption through Bryce.
Okay.
So I think they're going back and forth on that. And I do believe that Bryce can kick him to the curb by the end of CC3. I think she'll have forgiven herself from some of the hard choices that she had to make, because it was worth it in the end.
Right.
I think Tharion, we know, sees Bryce as being gray.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, you're just like me. Don't pretend you're any better. And it goes back and forth. And I think, you know, like, their fake sexual relationship is endearing. And I do find them together to be very endearing. And again, Bryce needs forgiveness in this moment. So she can't forgive herself, but she's going to forgive Tharion. Because in this moment, Bryce tells Ethan that they're going to find some way to help Connor. And quote, it might have been the worst lie she'd ever told. Because as Ethan left, he looked like he actually believed her.
Which is really, really tragic. And in that moment, yeah, she is kind of like Tharion, telling pretty little lies to help people feel better about the choices that they're going to make.
Yeah.
What I didn't write, as this is happening, as Bryce is talking to Connor, Ethan, and Tharion's gone, she's also rubbing her brow as if to wipe away the kiss.
Oh.
Which I thought was funny. Like, I think she's trying to wipe away Tharion, but she can't help herself.
She and Tharion are very linked.
Yeah, they are very linked.
At the Comitium, Hunt and Isaiah are eating, and Hunt is opening up. You know, he's telling Isaiah, like, hey, Bryce and I decided not to wait till winter solstice, so I'm mad. And that kind of implies that Isaiah knew about it, which implies that he's talked to Isaiah about that.
Yeah.
And you know, Isaiah points out to Hunt, quote, I never thought I'd see the day when the Umbra Mortis came crying to me about a relatively light punishment because it interferes with his sex life. Hunt drained his water. Isaiah had a point there. It's funny because, like, you know, how much of being away from Bryce is like a true punishment. But again, I feel like it just really shows how far Hunt has come from book one Hunt, who went to the bar for the first time with them and was like having problems there. And now Hunt looks at Isaiah and he thinks, quote, he never really deserved a friend like Isaiah. Like, he recognizes Isaiah as a friend.
Yeah, I actually think this episode does a lot to show how much Hunt has not only changed from the Umbra Mortis we met at the start of Earth and Blood, but also how receptive and open Hunt is to the rest of the world. Yeah, he's upset about this punishment, but the fact that he's able to take Isaiah's teasing in stride, I think means a lot. And Isaiah is able to put him in place with humor, which I think also, you know, it's not just Bryce now, it's everybody can do that. And nobody's not nobody, but Isaiah is not afraid to do that. I'm going to talk about it in chapter 43, but I think Hunt actually has really come a long way.
Yes.
And I think his ability to stop and quote unquote smell the roses and appreciate what he has in front of him is a big deal.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, Hunt is channeling Bryce and therefore channeling Danika, because Bryce likes to channel Danika. And what we see is that, like Bryce, Hunt withholds information because he thinks it's what's best for the person he cares about. As they talk in the cafeteria, Hunt is tempted to tell Isaiah everything. Quote, He couldn't tell Isaiah or Naomi, because if they knew, even if they agreed to keep the shit with the rebels secret and stay out of it, they'd be killed too. And you know what? You just got to keep secrets to keep your loved ones safe, and that's like an infection this friend group has.
Yeah. Look, I don't like capable of it. I don't like keeping secrets from you. It hurts me. But like, life and death, easy.
Yeah.
Easy. I know it's like, I mean, people can't tell my secrets, but like, life and death makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, to keep those secrets.
I want to give them credit, but it's also like,
I mean,
took off a sock to prove a point. I don't know what I was doing, but I really felt like I did something there. Like I just flipped that sock off of me. I'm like, what the okay.
We do give them a hard time for keeping secrets, but their stakes are higher.
Yeah,
when it comes to life and death, it feels like a no-brainer.
Yeah. No, so it's true. It's like I can sit here and be like, you jerk for keeping a secret, when it's like, yeah, I watch me keep my mouth real shut if our lives were in danger. When it comes to this episode, titles are a big part of it. There's a mirroring moment, right? Where you have Bryce struggling with her title. You have Hunt, who knows how to wield it and, embraces it, right? So like Bryce is going to wield her title and regret it immediately. Hunt, he doesn't like the Umbra Mortis title, but you really don't see him resisting the way that Bryce resists Princess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's because he's older and they're at different points in their journey.
And he's had the Umbra Mortis title for a long time, so he's had a lot of time to come to terms with it.
Yep.
We have a sad Baxian Danika breadcrumb during the conversation that I couldn't help but point out. When Baxian joins Isaiah and Hunt at their table, Isaiah starts getting pissy about how Baxian is only recently antagonistic toward Lydia and didn't do anything about it when they were all under Sandriel. Baxian responds, quote, "You've been in Lunathion for a while, Tiberian. Things changed after you left." Isaiah asked, like what? Baxian gazed toward the glistening city roasting in the midday heat. Things.
I just need him to find, I need SJM to be like, turns out you could get 2 mates. Baxian, here's another.
You would be married to a dog.
Clarify?
You love dogs so much.
It sounded like
you
wanted an asshole. You would be married to some dog dipshit.
I shouldn't have said it.
You're the one who's going to have to deal with my future dog. Husband,
true.
sorry.
It's true. I married a cat.
It's true.
Or I am marrying a cat.
Yeah. The podcast doesn't know.
Oh, I got engaged, guys.
Yeah.
I proposed.
Yeah.
To my girlfriend, who is like a cat.
Who is like a cat. The whole thing with Baxian is just too depressing. But, we're going to continue. Quote, Hunt and Isaiah are laughing, but Hunt sobered as he noted Baxian observing their volley, something like envy on his face. I want to say that, we've seen Baxian kind of look longingly, but I don't know if at this point we haven't seen him really be too envious of Bryce and Hunt.
Yeah.
And right now, what we are seeing is envious of friendship. And I feel like that's something that Danika would have taught him. That friendship means more, some regards. Like when the loved one dies, who's going to get you through it? The friends.
Right. He's gone through this huge loss.
Yeah.
And he has no way to cope with it. Whereas, let's say hypothetically something happens to Hunt, Bryce would cope through it with friends.
Exactly.
I mean, she didn't do it very well when Danika died.
She didn't really have friends. They all exorcised her. They all got rid of her.
Exiled her?
Yeah, that one.
No, it's true, though. Fury and June, bye-bye.
Yeah, no, she didn't have friends. Screw you, June.
Hunt starts channeling Bryce again. We're going to see that throughout this episode. But in this moment, when Baxian and Isaiah start to get into it, Hunt uses humor to cut through the tension. Quote, Hunt cut in, Sandriel would be thrilled to know she's still putting us against each other all these years later. Isaiah blinked as if surprised he'd tried to intervene. Baxian watched him cautiously. Hunt took another deep breath. Fuck, that sounded preachy. Baxian let out a snort and the tension dissolved. Now, Hunt isn't very good at being humorous, but, I see the effort.
Yeah.
He's trying.
Yeah. As a Hunt and Ruhn fan, I will point out any moment I possibly can with the two of them. Isaiah says, quote, I have a meeting with the Ox. Hunt winked. Give Ruhn my love. Runt forever.
I saw that and I was like, oh my God, no. That's why there aren't more fics. Nobody wants to accept Runt as their ship.
The other option was Hoon.
I like Hoon better.
Hoon forever. In CC3, I was initially thrown that Hunt didn't take up the lead with the angels at the very end. I mean, it makes sense. Like, Bryce doesn't with being a queen, so of course she doesn't. But I felt like there was buildup in CC1 where everyone starts bowing down to him, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was confused about that. However, at this point, I'm like, okay, I can see what SJM's doing. Quote, "Not interested in leading again?" Baxian asked. "Too much paperwork. You led once. It went poorly. I don't blame you for not stepping up again." Hunt clenched his jaw but said nothing else. I think that Hunt has the potential but not the desire to be the leader, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, he's traumatized.
Yeah.
He's traumatized by his effort to lead that led to everybody's death, and it's okay if he doesn't want to take on that mantle again.
Having trauma and coping through the trauma doesn't mean you're like, okay, I'm going to go and do the thing again.
Right.
Like, you can peacefully say, I have moved past that and I have no desire to go back there.
Yep. I realized I did not do well as a leader, and it's okay that I don't want to be a leader.
Yeah.
I don't want to repeat those mistakes. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did find this moment a little humorous because Baxian's calling him out without being mean about it.
Yeah.
And Hunt takes it as an insult anyway. I think because he's still coming to terms and he still suffers with a lot of guilt. I also feel like this is brought up in a lot of ways because Isaiah was just talking to Hunt about this as well. Isaiah was telling Hunt, like, you could lead. And Hunt's like, nope, you can keep the title. Hunt keeps being forced into a box he doesn't want to be in. Bryce does it to him. Isaiah does it to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes sense that Hunt's instinct is to kind of be like, I don't like this. A, don't put me in a box, but B, don't call me out for putting me in, me not wanting to be in the box either.
Yeah, Hunt just wants to have his own little pottery shop.
With Bryce
and sell plants.
And, do the Ghost movie where they're making the pottery.
And on the side, he sells essential oils that he makes from the plants. Like Hunt just wants to be in his cottagecore era.
He's a crystal girly.
Oh my God, he's such a crystal girly.
Now, at this point, Hunt's like, I'm done with lunch. I don't want to hang out with Baxian anymore. And instead of getting mad at Baxian for calling him out, Hunt tries to play it cool in front of all the other angels to present a united front of all the Triari. Hunt walks through the crowd to dispose of his lunch, and in that moment feels a lot of guilt. Remember, he's being reminded that he's a terrible leader, so it's not surprising for him to default to some sort of guilt. Quote, Hunt didn't bother to engage as Isaiah had with the other angels. He couldn't bear to look at the other soldiers, the people who'd be summoned to fight against Ophion, people he'd kill if they threatened Bryce. This is the first time I really thought about this as a conundrum, that Bryce has put Hunt in this really difficult position. She is choosing to help people like her, which is forcing Hunt to endanger people like him. I can see why Hunt struggles to see the human side, because to see the human side is to reject the angels like him.
Yeah, I love that. It's got me on more thought train, so let me add a little boost to this. To kind of add on to that, I wonder how much of this is because Hunt's not truly an angel, and there's like a natural isolation instinct there, which I think kind of is like, he doesn't fit with humans, he doesn't fit with over here, and that's why he thrives with the mosh posh of friends and stuff.
Yeah, I can see that.
He is an angel, but like also not.
True. He does in some ways have some loyalty to angels though. And ultimately his mother was a full-blood angel. Yep. So I think it's natural for him to want to side with angels, even though that's not ultimately what he is. Yeah.
Baxian asks Hunt what's in it for him when it comes to this life. Like Hunt's just sitting here, a little preachy, but he's like earned it. What I mean? He's not a bad preachy, but he's a little preachy. And so Baxian's like, man, what's in this for me? And quote, it's what you make of it, Hunt said, opening his door. Stale, dusty air greeted him, a far cry from the scent of coffee that filled Bryce's apartment. Like, all of a sudden, I'm like, he's so wise. Like, Life is what you make of it. There's no coffee smell here. But it just shows that like all of his senses and his whole world has shifted to Bryce. Like his senses are so in tune with her.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it's a lovely visual image that Hunt, just like Baxian, didn't make much of his life prior to finding his mate. You know, it's actually a very sad image to think of all the centuries wasted of his time.
Oh my God, yeah.
I don't think it makes me empathize with Rhys, but it makes me empathize with Hunt. That he...
Alright, continue.
That he lived 200 years before finding his person.
Yeah.
More than 200 years. Whereas Rhys lived more than 500 years before finding Feyre, and I don't really give a shit. Hunt, though, I feel bad for him because he didn't really do anything with himself. He was enslaved.
I think the story of Hunt is how much of his life has been locked away.
Yeah.
And that adds to it. Like, Rhys had 50 years of locked away.
Yeah.
And that's sad. And I see what you're saying, though, where it's like Rhys was living a full life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wasn't celibate. He was, like, out there. You know, I'm sure he had girlfriends, whatever the equivalent is and stuff. But, like, Hunt has truly not lived. He had 30-something years and then immediately was enslaved.
Yep. Yep.
So it's like not only he's just been so robbed of time and yet has managed to find these life lessons.
Yeah. You're so much more eloquent than I am today. I'm so proud of you.
Oh my God, thank you. Where's my medal?
Where is your medal?
I have it on the floor. I did a 5K today, guys, and I have a medal.
She's been wearing it all day.
Yeah, but it has the King's logo on it and, you know, copyright laws.
Copyright.
Hunt says then to Baxian, that's what my life was like, you know. Like what? Vacant. Then what happened? Bryce happened. Baxian smiled slightly. Sadly. Was it possible the Hellhound was lonely? Yeah, you
Oh my
dumb
God.
ass. Like, here we are praising Hunt, and it's like, you're so stupid.
He is really dumb.
It is, like, funny how quickly it goes from, like, you know, that's what my life was like so wise to...
Yeah.
Are you sad? I think he has hurt feelings. And it's just like, it all hurts my heart. It just, you know, it makes me really sad. And it also begs the question, could Hunt or Ruhn or Bright or Rhys ever be like Baxian, truly? Like, if they lost their mate. And I think that the reason why Baxian is surviving is because he learned good from Danika.
Interesting.
We know he learned being good from her.
Yeah.
And I think Danika, because of Bryce, understood love in the capacity of it being more than just romantic. Yeah. And that life is made out of more than just romantic love.
Yeah, that's so interesting. My first response was like, nah, they'd all just kill themselves because they're pathetic. I mean, Rhys made a bargain to make sure he dies.
So the answer is yes, he would.
But let's think about Hunt. Could Hunt survive without Bryce? I don't think he would want to.
Yeah.
But if he had people like Baxian and Ruhn around him to support him, I think he could.
And Ruhn, I don't know what he's like as a mate yet. We don't have enough stuff with him. He was busy ignoring her and had to get his hand chewed off. So honestly,
not promising.
I think he'd be fine. Because Hunt can hear Bryce in his mind, just like, you know, encouraging him, even though she doesn't even know what's going on. You can hear her being like, go ahead, try, you know, make a friend. So Hunt offers to play video games with Baxian.
I want to spend the time to actually read the quote that Jac is referencing, because again, Hunt is channeling Bryce. Like, he's channeling her so much that he hears her berating him in his own mind. Quote, he could hear Bryce saying, come on, try. It won't kill you. She bossed him around even in his imagination.
I do hear you in my head sometimes.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, where I'm like, I guess I'll do this. You don't hear me telling you to do stuff?
Oh, I do.
Okay. Good for us.
Usually, we should go to the gym. It's not that hard.
Yours are also like, hurts me too. Come on, just do it. Just do the thing.
It's not that hard to do it before you go to bed.
More quote here from this moment of them being friends. Quote, Baxian surveyed him, and Hunt waited for the rejection. But Baxian said, sure, why not? Hunt was ready to be rejected. Like, again, talk about growth. And it's so hard to put yourself out there and just be like, do you want to be my friend?
Yeah.
Do you want to play video games? And the answer was cute, and they bro out.
And I think what's really cute about this is I think Hunt expects rejection and is okay with rejection.
Yeah.
It's actually more terrifying that Baxian said yes.
Yeah. Because now you gotta be friends.
Because now you actually have to put in the effort.
Yeah.
Like, you have to put I was going to say your money where your mouth is, which is not quite.
Now you have to really try by playing a video game.
Yeah. Oh, what a bummer. At the end of the scene, I think we again see some growth on Hunt's part. Quote, Hunt let the subject drop. The gods knew he'd had plenty he hadn't wanted to talk about when he first arrived here. And the gods knew he'd done plenty of terrible shit on Sandriel's orders too. Maybe he could take his own advice from earlier. Maybe it was time to stop letting Sandriel's specter haunt them. Wow. Amazing.
I know.
You gave good advice. You took your good advice.
Wow.
Bare minimum effort. Good job. What I like about this is, like, Hunt is really able to grasp the subject of, like, empathy and sympathy. Like, he's actually able to project himself and see himself in Baxian.
Yes.
And I asked myself, like, why did it take so long? Hunt was only really able to do this for Bryce up until this moment. And now we're starting to see him extend it past himself, maybe to people like Celestina and to Baxian, who he has bad history with. And I wonder to some extent if Hunt's ability to empathize with Baxian right now is because Celestina put distance between the two of them. That he was like, I don't have to be here. If you could be a little more empathetic, I could be with my mate. But you laid down the law. So maybe I'm going to try to give someone the benefit of the doubt when I feel I should have deserved the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know that that's actually what's going on, but I was trying to make sense of, like, why.
I love that. I have a slightly different perspective on it. It gave me, and this is not going to relate to you because you grew up in China. But, like, you know, imagine.
Okay, I'll try.
So, like, in high school, I think you had, like, you know, like junior year, one of the high schools I went to, people could go off campus to get lunch. And it was like, you know, they had a car, they could come back, and then they come back with their McDonald's or Chipotle being like, hey guys, it's my meal. I got it because I can go off campus. Like, there was like the sense of like kind of superiority and like they're so wise because they can drive to Chipotle. It kind of gives me the same vibes with Hunt, where it's like everyone is still trapped there. Yeah. Everyone is still there. Isaiah is still a slave. Yeah. He's the only one who's gotten out and he's free. And now he's coming back and there's like a layer of like, hey guys, I've seen the outside world and I'm wise now.
I completely, I retract everything I said and I completely support you.
Thank you.
I see it though. Yeah. It's like, I've had wisdom in my freedom.
Yeah. Like, hey, I've been outside for like 3 months and I get it now. I've like touched a vagina.
It's like touching grass.
Yeah. So we're here with Bryce and she withholds information from Hunt again, but we're in her perspective. And we talked about this last time. We're getting more from Bryce's perspective. And I think SJM's doing this on purpose because she's building up to the grand reveal about Emil. Yep. Quote, she hadn't dared tell Hunt what had happened with the Mystics, not over the phone, where anyone could listen in. But the next time she saw him face to face, she'd tell him everything. Everything, including Emil. That's not what she says, but that's me. Like she's going to tell him everything. And, you know, it makes sense. Like, yeah, you know, anyone could be listening to their conversation. You can't talk about this over the phone. Right. We're also getting more of these hints that, like, she's definitely hiding something.
I love that you bring that up because we do see a lot of it in this episode leading up to the reveal. And in this episode, we're only going to see Hunt figure it out. But there's a lot of clues that Bryce wants to talk to him, but isn't able to talk to him. And at first, I thought, you know what? She's learned her lesson. She doesn't want to tempt him to leave the barracks. Yeah. Because the last time she did that, it was because Sabine was there and then Hunt got in trouble. And that's why they're in this mess. I was like, good for you, Bryce. You're growing. But then I really thought about it. And the clue is not listening in. Like, she doesn't. That's the reason, right? Yeah. If she knows where Emil is and wants to tell Hunt the truth, she can't.
Well, now she has a lot more time to move around without being supervised. Yeah. We know a week passes. Yeah. That's a whole ass week that she could have been, like, we know for a fact she was out there figuring out stuff with Emil.
I think I talk about it in the breadcrumbs, but there is a breadcrumb early on after they encounter Mordoc. Bryce has a postcard she wants to go send to her mother.
Yep.
And that's our little clue.
We know. So back to their, you know, conversation, top secret conversation. Bryce can't, you know, we can't talk about anything. Anyone can listen in. But, like, you know, it's okay if they listen in to our phone sex, though. That's totally fine.
You know what, though? I love it because they're weaponizing their sex
Yeah.
to distract from the truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's okay.
they miss each other. That's why they're having sex. But it's cool as a weapon that
Yes.
they're...
Anyone would be listening.
Yeah. Like, hey, Asteri, you want to listen to us talk about rebel stuff? Let's fuck.
Yeah. The only rebel here is my pants. I don't know. I don't know. There's not much to say on the phone sex stance. Never poo-poo phone sex. That's what I have to say. But I also would like to respect Hunt a little bit here because he encourages her to use the toy that she has and not like, use your hands. Like, one's going to make things happen very quickly. The other one's going to take a minute. And like, you just don't see that in books as much, like, hey, go grab the toy. And you know what? Not all men are confident in toys.
It's true.
They see them as a threat.
They really do.
It's so annoying. Not that I know.
It's a tool, not...
It's your friend.
Yeah. Not your enemy.
No. This is a team effort. Not that I know. We are back with Tharion, and he's reporting to the River Queen. And I just want to point out, at this point, we've never seen her at the same spot twice. I think that must be her choice. And I think that I was like wondering why. And I'm like, maybe to keep her on her toes. On his toe. Keep Tharion on his toes. But I also want to say that it's meant to show that we should be viewing her in more than one way. She's not just a ruler at a throne.
Yeah, she's dynamic.
Exactly. Tharion asks the River Queen if she knew what happened to souls, right? Because like they're all freaked out, like, oh my God, there's no real afterlife. And she implies that she knows, but I think she also implies that there's more. Quote, perhaps there is something beyond the second light, someplace our souls go even after all that, which is right. Like that's what we find out, like that this whole first light, second light situation, like souls just move on past that, right? Souls are not their power. She has an idea of the truth and she teases it, but Tharion just does not pick up what she puts down.
Because he's so short-sighted.
Yeah. Tharion assumes the absolute worst of her all the time. Quote, for a glimmer, he could see the world she seemed to want. A world without the Asteri where the River Queen ruled the waters and the current system of soul recycling remained. Because, hey, it kept the lights on, literally. Only those in power would change. Remember, this is Tharion who's assuming this. He's assuming the worst about her. But because, what do we know about Tharion? He assumes the worst in himself. He did this with Bryce. He does this with himself. So we already know at this point, SJM is telling us, don't trust Tharion's opinions.
Yeah.
They're not valid.
Right.
We can't trust his judgment. And at this point, we're supposed to say, okay, what you're saying about the River Queen is probably incorrect.
Absolutely. For a captain of intelligence, he has no intelligence. He's not able to take the messages that people are literally saying to him and decipher them. He's got to extrapolate them and apply them to whatever his projection of himself on them, really, if we think about it.
Oh, yeah.
What we should be really getting from this is that maybe the River Queen doesn't support the Asteri. Maybe she believes in a better world.
Yes. And I feel like SGM might be giving us more clues because as the River Queen leaves, quote, then she was gone, dissolving into the Istros itself and floating away as glowing blue plankton, like a trail of stars soared through the river. Genuine question. And like, this is hard because like, I can't remember every single book that SJM's written, but I feel like in general, SJM uses stars as a description of someone who's good. Maybe there was a moment with Ianthe that I missed, like, and I could be totally wrong, but if that is the case in a book where there's a lot of references to Akatar world, I think that's not one to ignore.
No, you know what this just made me think of, and I didn't think of it during note taking, but I thought of it when you were reading it. This reminds me of a moment between Rhys and Mor in Frost and Starlight, where they're on the bank of the river, and Mor looks out to the river and sees a trail of stars in the river.
Do you see, like, SJM?
I feel like, I wonder if this is connecting, if we look at Mor and Tharion, there's a lot more to both of them.
Yeah.
We know that they're both struggling with their internal truths and their place in their worlds.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising to me that this image is seen by both of them.
Yeah.
In their respective worlds.
Great catch.
Thank you. I only remember it because I think we talked about it during our Frost and Starlight season.
Something's got to have stuck in there. Something.
We end the chapter with Tharion's ominous thought. Quote, was a rebellion worth fighting if it only put other power-hungry leaders in charge? For the innocents, yes, but Tharion couldn't help but wonder if there was a better way to fight this war. Better people to lead it. I don't know that Tharion's necessarily thinking he should be the one leading it. I would definitely say he's no better than Ophion at this point in time.
Yeah.
I think it's a breadcrumb for Bryce and Hunt, but I don't know that that's what Tharion's actively thinking. That Bryce and Hunt should be the ones leading.
No, I don't think he's there yet either. I think this is like him finally having rebel thoughts in general.
Yeah.
Because it's been a buildup with him.
Yeah.
And now this is the first time when he was like, no, I don't want her to lead.
Yeah, I don't want the River Queen to lead. I don't want the rebels to lead. Like, I don't want the Asteri to lead.
But surprising, he doesn't come with any solutions, so.
Yeah.
And now a word from our sponsors. There is nothing more frustrating when you're stuck between back-to-back meetings and all you need is a quick meal, but you want it to be delicious. You want it to be fresh food. And finally, you can have all those things with Factor.
Factor has no prep, no mess meals with 35 different options and 60 add-ons to choose from every week that are honestly so delicious.
I'm genuinely devastated that I don't have my Factor this week because now I actually have to think about what I'm doing. Instead of restaurant quality meals with premium ingredients, I mean, we're talking filet mignon, we're talking shrimp, we're talking blackened salmon.
We love those things.
Huge fan. I will be getting my Factor next week. And you could be getting your Factor too.
Head to factormeals.com/booktalk50 and use code booktalk50 BOOKTALK50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month.
That's code BOOKTALK50 BOOKTALK50 at factormeals.com/booktalk50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. I cannot tell you how much I love these Factor meals.
Give it a try. You will be thanking yourself later.
You're right. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk. Now we move into chapter 41, and a week has gone by, during which Bryce has been training with Cormac and Ruhn. I think it's important that we're in Ruhn's perspective right now because, referring back to what Jack said, we can't always be in Bryce's point of view, otherwise too much is revealed. Quote, from Tharion's unusually haggard face, Ruhn had wondered if the mare's queen was breathing down his neck about Emil. But no more bodies had been found. Either the kid was here in hiding or someone else had gotten him. I think that's important to note right now because Bryce has just sent a postcard to her mom and didn't want to talk to Hunt on the phone because she's afraid of people listening in. And now no one's being tortured and killed?
Oh my God.
What could it mean?
Well, right. Bryce is struggling with the training. Quote, if Apollyon wanted his epic opponent, Ruhn was inclined to tell the Prince of the Pit it might take a while. It just felt like that's sibling moment.
Yeah.
Sibling moment. And we don't get him teasing her much because he's just so like, I love you, Bryce.
I want to support you like your big bro should. Yeah.
So it's kind of like refreshing where he's even though he doesn't tell her.
Yeah.
But it's refreshing that he has these sibling thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. Bryce in this moment complains, quote, I think my magic's broken. And I don't know why it took me just now to realize that maybe her magic's broken because maybe Hunt's never there to indirectly charge her.
I hope that's the thing.
Because we were constantly calling out every time Hunt got mad, his lightning would sizzle and then Bryce would feel warm. Like, she's not having those moments right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's not using her magic. So the equation, to me, if Bryce plus Hunt equals magic, Bryce minus Hunt equals no magic.
I think that's fair.
Now, during this training sequence, Ruhn is reflecting on the fact that Ethan has moved in with him and Flynn and Deck. And he thinks about Ethan and the fact that Ethan's a good housemate. But let's talk about how low the bar is. Ruhn thinks all of this because Ethan, quote, cleaned up after himself, cleaned up after Flynn, and was excellent at beer pong.
Oh my God.
Males are so simple. But also, what's that showing me? It's showing me that Ruhn still lacking a little bit of maturity.
A lot of maturity.
A lot of maturity. He's just trying to feel normal. So you know what? Beer pong.
Ethan's been living there for a week.
Yeah.
How many times have you played beer pong?
It's true. And also, he's cleaned for a week. That's like the bare minimum the first week you move in.
I know, right? He just has his roommate honeymoon period.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Declan then informs everyone that he has the footage of Danika. And again, Bryce doesn't tell Hunt. Quote, she hadn't dared call Hunt, not when one wrong move with Celestina could keep him away even longer. Again, it's understandable, but we're starting to see the snowball effect. She's not telling Hunt these moments. We're going to get another thing that she's not going to tell him on. And it's just going to keep being messy.
And we have to remind ourselves the lack of communication serves two purposes, at least, if not more. One, Bryce can't tell Hunt about Emil.
Yeah.
It makes sense. She doesn't want Emil to get caught. And this is a convenient that Hunt's not around, right? Does she want to tell Hunt about Emil? I think she will eventually get to that point. I don't know if in this moment that she necessarily cares.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of going her way right now. Bryce also can't tell Hunt about her moves. Again, so he's not tempted to come to her aid when she doesn't need his aid. And that way he doesn't get punished. I did have to stop and ask myself, is Bryce being a good girlfriend by not giving Hunt reasons to get in trouble? Or is the separation convenient? And I do think both can be true.
I agree.
And like I said earlier, Bryce is kind of learning from her mistakes with Sabine and calling Hunt back. But I will always choose to believe it's about convenience for her.
I think for her, it really is double, like both of them, right?
Yeah.
I think in this episode, we're going to call out more moments where she genuinely cares about Hunt.
Yeah.
He is a big consideration for her. However, Bryce is not an idiot. It will never let a good opportunity go.
No.
After discovering that Danika was reading a book, Bryce calls Jessica and she's like, hey, I need this book. And Jessica says, quote, I don't take demands, even from a starborn princess. But then Jessica does send her the book. But just a reminder that Bryce's princess status is something to help her. And it's something to hurt her. So more struggling with this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bryce doesn't even use her Starborn Princess title here. Yeah. Jessica's the one who uses it as a weapon. And that's where I think that hurting her comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of foreshadowing what we're about to see with June. There was this little breadcrumb that I thought was worth pointing out during the conversation between Bryce and Jessica. When Bryce is trying to get info out of Jessica and she's making guesses, Jessica laughs at Bryce and her narrow-mindedness and tells Bryce, quote, you are so very young.
It was funny. It's
funny to see the little clues. Not that they were ever enough to make us guess that Jessica's over 15,000 years old.
I know.
But
They're there.
I appreciate the effort.
Yeah. Bryce then goes to talk to the Prime. Quote, Bryce didn't dare inform Hunt over the phone what she was doing, why she was doing it, but not having Hunt at her side as she slipped past the guards at the den's gate felt like a phantom limb, like she might find him in the shadows beside her at any moment, assessing a threat. Again, like, I feel like I'm reading the same quote over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce didn't dare tell Hunt over the phone. Bryce didn't dare. This is the third time. And Bryce didn't dare tell Hunt. And again, it's understandable. It's snowballing. It's messy. But this is also one of the moments where, like, we're getting that actual vulnerability of, like, I really wish he was here.
Yeah. I think this is where we finally start to see that transition from convenience.
Yes.
To, I'm only doing this because I need to protect Hunt.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that this sequence is really, really important because seeing her guilt, seeing Bryce miss Hunt actually changes my mind about the whole Emil situation. I used to think Bryce was a little shit for how long she kept Emil's secret from Hunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what this is showing me is that Bryce never really had a true opportunity. I'm gonna counter argue that later in the episode, but right now, as of this moment, if Hunt had been home, Bryce would have told him.
Yes.
She is just not in a position, and Hunt is not in a position for that information to be shared.
I really feel like there's the moments where Bryce withholds, people remember that.
Yeah.
Versus not remembering her struggling without Hunt.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that too.
Oh, yeah,
like I am
too.
Completely forgot all these moments where I was like, oh shit, you care about him, forgot.
Yeah. Oh shit, you wanted to tell him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Prime is sitting under an oak tree. It just, it's one of those like quick, easy ones, but like, oak tree means strength, endurance, and stability.
And I had to know the definition I looked up said power, strength, and wisdom, which makes sense because Bryce is going to him.
So we're each going to get these tattooed. Right?
Power, strength, wisdom.
Strength, endurance, stability.
I like mine better.
Oh!
Although I need your stability so I don't fall over and hurt myself again.
The amount of times I throw my arms out in front of you because I'm worried you're going to trip.
It's so true.
It is like I'm walking with a toddler.
Aww.
But you're not. But my concern for you is like that of a toddler. You're better than a toddler.
Thank you.
During Bryce's talk with the Prime, he calls her a wolf. Quote, Ruhn had told her what the Prime had said during the attack. She tried not to think of how much it meant to her. This is a title that she likes. She likes being called a wolf. It's a title, though, that got her into trouble with Sabine. And it's a title that got Ethan into trouble with Sabine for defending Bryce. So even though this is a title that she enjoys, she really breaks off the wolf connection. I want to say in this book.
Yeah, and I think she has to out of necessity. But we also see how much Ethan only values wolves, and I'm not quite mad about Bryce losing the wolf title.
I agree. That's going to be an interesting conversation later. The Prime then gives this lovely little speech to her. Quote, we yielded our true nature, lost sight of it, then lost it forever. Became what we are now. We say we are free wolves, yet we have the collar of the Asteri around our necks. Their leashes are long, and we let them tame us. Now we do not know how to get back to what we were, what we might have been. More and more leaders in this book we're seeing question the Asteri. And it's not something that we saw in book one, and it's not something that we're seeing until now, really. I think even Autumn King has hinted towards it. There's power players that are like really not into the Asteri. And it's build up. Yeah,
which I think it's appropriate for us to only really see it now. Compared to Earth and Blood.
Yeah.
We're halfway through the second book, halfway through the middle book in the series, or at least in Bryce's story. So it makes sense that we're starting to see all the cracks.
Yes.
Among the different groups of power.
SJM's done it well.
She has. The chapter ends with Bryce asking Cormac about Pippa, and this is really a breadcrumb, but I want to bring them up because of what we get at the end of this episode. Now, we've learned Ophion has stolen a mechsuit prototype and has taken it to Ydra, which is not far from Lunathion. And Bryce asks Cormac, what about Emil? Was Pippa successful with him? Why is that important right now, Bryce? Because Bryce is trying to arrange transport from Emil to her parents. She wants the reassurance that Pippa isn't on his trail.
Yeah.
Which you don't pick up unless you know it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Chapter 42 starts, and Bryce is on her way to talk with Celestina, and she is using the power of her title. But she then gets a phone call from June, who is mad that she used the power of her title. It's great poetic moment. Like, SJM did this on purpose, and it was done very, very well. Bryce says, quote, "Isn't the only bit of good that being a princess entails?" That being like, you know, pulling some strings. And then June says, "No, it's the opposite." June was absolutely screaming with rage. "I have worked my entire life for this, Bryce. My entire life. And you stepped in and take that accomplishment away from me. Make yourself, not me, not my talent, into the reason I got this promotion. The reason I made history. You, not me." Okay, like when you say it like that, sure, that's like, that sucks big time. It feels so extra intense. And I just kind of like was wondering, like, what, like, where's the more from this, right? Because does Bryce cross the line? Was this inappropriate? Yes. What is June saying valid? Absolutely. But I was caught on this like making history thing. And I'm wondering, now this is me totally reaching here, but is there any kind of sticking point about Bryce automatically making history just by being a Starborn princess?
Yeah.
And then June having to like make her history because, you know, we know Bryce felt like she was always left behind with her friends. And then I was like, oh, well, June could easily feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. You know, what this moment told me and what your question kind of formed in my brain was this idea that Juniper's probably been mad at Bryce for her selfishness before.
Yeah.
And this level of mad means it's not the first time June's been mad about Bryce's selfishness.
Yep.
This is just the last straw.
Yes.
And it just so happens to be in this really, really big way that was really important for June. So this is her breaking point in her friendship with Bryce. And we've all gone through it where we're like, I've kept all these feelings inside and I haven't said anything. And now I'm going to explode on you.
That's why we express.
That's why we express.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard to tell how much of this is truly deserved of Bryce for the action that she did. Is this a culmination of things we haven't seen before? Or, you know, does June have actually secretly a really big ego?
Yeah. Yeah.
June also says, quote, "It's a bad thing because everyone knows that Princess Bryce Dannon put in a call and threatened to pull the Autumn King's donations if the CCB didn't recognize my talent." Well, that's harsh because now Bryce is basically equivalent to the Autumn King if she can pull his donations. I think from Bryce's point of view, I would be hurt. Bryce is in her own friend's eyes. And that's not what June is saying, but in my head, how I'm interpreting this is like, you're no better than your father.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's and that would be very hurtful for Bryce to hear from her friend.
Yeah.
I will say, I do think Bryce should have known better for so many reasons. One of them being Fury's a mercenary that everyone's afraid of. If June really wanted someone to intercede, Fury could have done it a long time ago.
I hadn't thought of that.
Like, all she has to do is walk into a room with a gun and be like, "You're making my girlfriend the principal."
That's a good freaking point. I mean, at the end of the day, Bryce should 100% have run it by June. Yeah. On the other side of the other day, it's like, run with it, June. I don't know. Like, this world is built off of bribes and nepotism.
Yeah. I, as someone who's not afraid to ask people for what I need.
Like, you know, just because someone opens a door for you doesn't mean you have the talent to stay.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think that's a great point. Like, Bryce can do the thing that money does and open the door for June, but June has to be able to prove that she can still own that spot.
Absolutely. Bryce then needs to immediately hang up because she's about to get into her meeting with Celestina. But before that, quote, Bryce focused on her breathing. She needed one of Kira's dance classes immediately, needed to sweat and breathe and majorly unload and analyze the tornado wreaking havoc inside her. Bryce needs therapy. Like, that's what she's saying. She's like, I need therapy. I am not coping well. And it's also showing there's a buildup of emotions. I feel like there's just a big lead up of something about to happen. And I can't remember. I'm sure, like, maybe like the whole recklessness at the last bit of the book is built up from all of this, which I'm sure it is. And, I think that volcano's about to explode. That is Mount Bryce. And, her choices will make more sense with understanding these moments. When Bryce meets Celestina, though, quote, "Your Highness," Celestina answered, and Bryce reined in a wince. It was how she got this meeting, too.
And to continue that quote, she'd asked the Archangel to not meet as Bryce Quinlan, but as a princess of the Fae. She wondered how it'd come back to haunt her. Total breadcrumb for later in the book. But it's just another instance of Bryce being like the Autumn King. She's not using her name, she's using her title.
Mm-hmm.
How many of us have forgotten the Autumn King's real name because we just call him Autumn King?
I forgot he had
I genuinely cannot remember.
I think
his
it
name.
starts with an E.
I think so too, but it always wants me to say
Ezekiel?
Elora? Enora? I always think it's like something feminine.
I agree. Bryce asks Celestina for Hunt. Just for the night, though, and she uses her mother as an excuse. Quote, "But the governor smiled fully at that. Your mother is a fearsome creature?" And then another quote, "Try being an archangel in a small community," Celestina said and smiled genuinely. Celestina and Bryce are opening up, and it is a compassion from Bryce. Like, Bryce knows how to use her charm, and she's using it. But again, two things can be true. Bryce is a very compassionate person. Yeah. I don't think that she's being nice to Celestina just purely to get Hunt. However, it is also to get Hunt.
Yeah.
So, two things can be true. But it just hurts because Celestina is, buying into all of it, too.
Yeah. 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 And it's just, no wonder why Celestina doesn't give a shit about you two at the end of the book, because you both,
screw her over. And, Bryce in general, is different from Hunt. And we know that Celestina was looking for friendship in Hunt. Mm-hmm. Horrible person, as we talked about. Isaiah is much better. But if she can't get it from Hunt, then, Bryce is kind of like a better replacement for friendship because she's different from Hunt. Bryce asks about Ephraim. Quote, "A shadow flickered across Celestina's face, confirmation that she wasn't contented. He's a thorough lover. Celestina deserves so much more than that." Bryce sighed. "I know you're like an archangel, but if you ever need some girl talk, I'm here." Celestina smiled again, that warmth and relief returning to her features. "I like that very much, Your Highness." Bryce in this instance. It's, it's really sweet. It's like a moment of true friendship, but like we said, Celestina is a bystander in the larger story. And, I'm not going to just call out SJM. This is going to be for all books, right? There's always going to be innocent bystanders to the hero's choices that we don't really get anything beyond that, right? Because people get screwed over, and Celestina keeps getting screwed over by Bryce and Hunt. And eventually it's going to, if this was a relationship that they nurtured and fostered, then I think she would have their back. Yeah. Maybe not completely, but to a degree. Now you just have this moment where, Celestina's a bystander, and this is the consequences of that.
Yeah, I think that's what makes SJM's writing good, is because she's good about allowing bystanders the opportunity to get their vengeance, almost.
Yeah.
And that's what, when those moments come full circle, you're like, if you could change the past, if you'd been a better person, it would have had to be this way.
And it's such a simple one because, especially in this moment, titles are stripped away. It's just open for friendship. It's a moment where they truly could have been friends.
Yeah, and I think that's where we get the angst. The angst isn't always about the relationships between the male and female protagonists. It's the angst from the lost opportunities.
Yeah.
And it really is a shame. I feel like just this brief interaction between Bryce and Celestina, we're seeing that feminine friendship can be really powerful. Being nice to Celestina wants to be nice back. Yeah. And it's just take Hunt. It's fine. He's being a pain in my ass anyway. Unfortunately, Bryce has different motives, though. And so she can't follow through on that kindness. She can't continue to return that kindness. Partway through the conversation, Bryce, quote, laughed and marveled that she did so, hated that she had to lie to this warm, kind female.
It's hard. Yeah. I mean, everything just keeps piling up for Bryce emotionally, you know? I mean, especially after this, where she calls Fury, and Fury tells Bryce that she messed up. Quote, "Bryce swallowed her nausea. her self-disgust and hatred. I too am swallowing my nausea, but that's from overeating. The thing is, though, Bryce's self-disgust and hatred is the same feeling that she had when she was lying to Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're having more moments, more similar moments, more disgust, more self-hatred piling up. Recklessness will ensue.
Yeah, and I wonder to what extent her conversation with Fury reminds her of her conversation with June, which is making her feel like the Autumn King. Like she has, in some ways, become no better than her father.
Yeah. And
I think what we're going to see is the way Bryce wants to cope is through sex. Right? How does she treat Hunt when she sees him in this moment?
She jumps his bones.
And I think that's important to remember because of the next day when Hunt and Bryce see each other and they're alone for a brief moment. Instead of Bryce telling Hunt the truth, they're making out.
Yeah.
Right? She could have told him about Emil in that moment.
Yep.
But she is still coming down from all of these interactions.
Yeah, because Bryce and Hunt, like her using her title and getting Hunt out is the one good thing that happened.
Yeah.
And he's grateful for it, too.
Yeah.
Quote, Bryce found Hunt smiling beside her, and it lightened any guilt about Juniper and frustration with Fury, any fear and dread about being so close to the Hind, even as she yearned to tell him everything. Like, she wants to tell him all these things. Like, she's really struggling here. And, you know, again, like, Hunt is her foundation, but in a different way. So Hunt is Bryce's foundation, but Bryce is Hunt's stability, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I had a glass of wine when I wrote this. So I'm like reading this. I'm like, I know I remember writing it and feeling like I was really onto something. But it like, you know, I think it's like each other's home stability and foundation means something different for both of them.
Yeah.
Because like Hunt is her foundation to like go and jump recklessly.
Yeah.
Bryce is the stability of here's a home, it never moves.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Thank you. Good job, wine, Jack.
I do think it's important that Bryce thinks, quote, she'd tell him everything once Hunt was home. All the insane shit that had gone on since they'd last seen each other.
I just see your note. Can I ruin this moment? No.
Can I ruin this moment?
All right, go for it.
So again, let's remember, she wants to tell Hunt everything. She has an opportunity later, which she doesn't take. She's dealing with Juniper, Fury, and feeling like she fucked up and feeling guilt. She's going to try to use sex. Whatever. I'm going to ruin this moment because Bryce promised Celestina she would not tell Hunt that he would be released the next day. And what's the first thing Bryce says to Hunt when she sees him? You're leaving.
Oh, no.
Quote, do a good job of seeming like you're brooding tonight, because that's what Celestina wants. She wants Hunt to brood and not know that he's going to receive good news from Celestina.
It's funny because that's like the type of thing that I would like easily do the same thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, you know, but again, poor Celestina, a bystander.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bryce already had different motives. She's already lied to Celestina. She could have done that. Like, she didn't have to tell Hunt.
No.
She could have abided by Celestina's wishes and, you know what, won some moral points. But instead, Bryce has tainted her promise and that one brief moment of friendship with Celestina.
Yeah.
And there are going to be consequences, like karmic consequences.
And normally it wouldn't be a bad thing because, again, I would totally be like, I promise not to tell them, and then be like, you're getting out, babe.
Yeah.
But it really is, it's just like one thing on a pile of so much, and you're just waiting for something to crack.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I don't know that this is one moment that other readers or listeners point to when they think, ugh, I didn't like Bryce in this book.
But it's like subconscious. It starts piling up.
It really does.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini-episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk. Bye! The end part always feels like it's so long to record, and then when I go to get rid of, like, it's like a minute.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.